Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You all know who this is. This is Dr. Soul Brother once again with a remedy to help cure you of your ills. Let's just dive right into it because this is a very serious subject matter that I want to address. I feel compelled to address. Most of you all out there are familiar with a man by the name of Dr. Greg Carr. Dr. Greg Carr is a man who has been blessed with a brilliant mind. He can bring some very important things to the table for you to consider. He's very knowledgeable about our history in America, and Dr. Carr is also very knowledgeable about Black people throughout the diaspora. All of that's true and all that's real. However, there are some things that he says and certain positions that he holds that have clearly become highly problematic. It's one thing to be upset and displeased with institutional racism and other inequalities in the United States. It is another thing to check out psychologically and emotionally, and in some cases, culturally. When you do that, just know and understand when you do that, um, you end up singing the praises, if you will, and echoing the talking points of racist white folk. And Dr. Clark, Lord, Dr. Carr, pardon me, I hope that you're out in the clouds. Because, brother, I need you to hear me. Listen to me very carefully. Because while I'm talking to my audience, I'm also talking to you, Dr. Carr. Listen to me real good. Um, this thing about, let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. When you, Dr. Carr, say that we're not Americans, the American flag is not ours or mine, how we're Africans, not Americans or African Americans. When you reject your American identity, you are doing exactly what they want you to do. They, meaning white folks who are racist. Dr. Carr, that's not revolutionary. It's not revolutionary, brother, by no stretch of the imagination. If anything, it's reactionary. Um, Dr. Carr, you've been guilty of imposing your personal hangups on others, whether it's the audience of Roland Martin, Karen Hunter, or other platforms, including your students at Howard University. Here you are teaching African American Studies and are the chairman of that department. You're not only the professor there, you're the chairman of that department. In spite of your brilliance, and when I talk about you being brilliant, I'm not patronizing. I mean that. You're clearly a highly intelligent guy. You bring a lot of positive things to the table. However, I would say since I would say roughly since COVID, um, I've seen a shift. Now, truth be told, I saw some stuff that was going on when you would be on, especially there was a town hall meeting that Roland Martin aired at this church. Um, you made some remarks that weren't too kosher in my judgment, but that was a bit more tolerable back then. Not now, bro. The stuff you talking about is not tolerable. Um, and in spite of your brilliance, you become a big problem. You clearly hate your nationality as well as your ethnicity. I'm going to say that again. You clearly hate your nationality as well as your ethnicity. I'm going to lay out some examples. Example number one. I could lay out a bunch of examples, but I'm just going to get to the point here. If anybody has watched the episode of In Class with Carr, episode 50, called Revolution versus Reform. This was in February 13th, 2021. a former student of yours by the name of Jacqueline pointed out that her father's African American and her mother's Jamaican. And it was clear by your body language and your facial expression that you are enamored by the fact that her mother is Jamaican. And I'll deal with that down the road. When Jacqueline sat up there and said that my father's U.S. or African American, and then she made the comment saying U.S. Negro would probably be the best term, because African American is pretty useless. And when she said that, you nodded your head real fast in approval, like, yes, I concur. I concur. And my mom is from Jamaica. So I grew up in a global perspective. Then I grew up in the military because she pointed out that both her parents were in the military. So when, and this is Jacqueline speaking. So when Professor Hunter asked where I'm from, I'm like, I'm from everywhere. Anywhere black people are, I'm from. I've been there. This is an issue with me, and here's why. When someone asks you where you from, and whether it's the state or even the country, um, of course the thing would be, well, I'm from the United States, or I'm from whatever country of origin that you're from. I find it curious that um, this young woman would make that kind of remark when typically, when you ask, at least it's been in my experience and observation, when you ask somebody, let's say, who's over here from wherever they're from. For example, if they say they're from the Anglophone or Francophone Caribbean, and of course, you hear an accent, whether it's they just got off the plane or they've been here for a while and the accent kind of watered down, but you can still kind of hear a foreign accent. And somebody asks where they're from. They never say have that kind of response. Well, I'm from wherever, everywhere, anywhere black people are. Never. But you feel compelled to do that if you're from the United States. Why? Because this whole thing, and I want to address the thing about being quote unquote global, and I'm putting that in quotes for a reason. Um, that this thing about being global and or slash international is a way, is a cover, and to do um, well, I'm black or I'm a what's the term? Uh, Citizen of the world. And when you say you're a citizen of the world, that is distinct and much different from, say, David Walker. Remember David Walker's appeal? I'm still talking to you, Greg Carr. But here's the thing: that's encouraged. Um, but this young sister, who's a former student of yours, clearly has been influenced by you. She's a victim of your tutelage. A victim. Yeah, I'm making it plain today. No, no, bro, we gonna talk. You are a problem, I'm telling you. And this has been gnawing at me for a while. I made the decision to address this. And I'm not done. If there's more. Um, she goes on to say that she really had to work on her mother to get the documents that she needed to get dual citizenship. Dual citizenship. So because um her mother is from elsewhere, she Jacqueline would qualify for dual citizenship. And then she goes on to say, because I was like, why not? Why not have a passport from Jamaica? And then your response, Dr. Greg Carr, why not, Jackie? Why not? You remember that? Family, I would encourage you, don't listen to this rhetoric because Dr. Greg Carr is trying to disabuse you and me, as well as himself, of our American identity, as well as our uh, African American ethnicity. Because you, Dr. Greg Carr, see the Caribbean, be it Anglophone or Francophone, let's say Haiti or Jamaica or something like that, as exotic and sexy. And truth be told, you are a wannabe Caribbean. Yeah, you are a wannabe Caribbean. It's just that obvious. It's the things that you say and it's what you do and your reaction. We saw when there was an episode of In Class with Carr when that brother from the UK was on there and he mentioned, I think it's his parents or grandparents, one of the two, I forget which, were from Jamaica, and your reaction, "Oh, Jamaica, that was you, Greg Carr. We saw that." Okay, you get hyper when it comes to anything as it relates to the Caribbean, specifically Jamaica. But let me move on. Um, that's a problem. So if you juxtapose that part of the interview with Jacqueline, uh, who was a former student of yours, who, as I mentioned, is a victim of your rhetoric. You juxtapose that with another show that was done in class with Carr, episode 128, when we were discussing Marcus Garvey, who you affectionately referred to as the big homie. Remember that? With Sunyata Amin. Now we're going to really cook. This broad here, boy, mm, you have no idea how my temper was rising when I was watching this episode. I mean, when this woman here was on there, first of all, you are responsible for introducing her to Karen Hunter. You're responsible. Um, this is the same woman, Sunyata Amin, by the way, who similar to Jacqueline Cole. Um, Sunyata Amin's father's family, Virginia and North Carolina, meaning that he has roots here, similar to Jacqueline's father. And Sunyata Amin's mother's family from Jamaica. One of your favorite places, bro. Jamaica. Um, and she talked about her maternal grandfather being from Jamaica and his mother, who would be her great grandmother, being from Cuba, and how they were Garveyites and all the rest of it. All that's cool. I have no problem with that. That's fine. That's not an issue. But here's where it becomes an issue in that particular episode. When she talked about Jamaicans have a saying, walk with your flag. And you were encouraging that. And just like how the thing is this, others are encouraged, and you're one of those who encourage this to wave their flags. But when it comes to the American flag, you believe in hiding it under a bushel. Okay, that's what makes your rhetoric problematic. In spite of the brilliance that you exhibit and the positive things that you point out some positive things that I concur with, like your attitude and position on what's happening with Tennessee State. And I'll deal with that in a moment. But let me deal with this. Sunyata Amin on that episode uh, did two things simultaneously that greatly troubled me. One, she, by the way she was talking, you got the impression that both of her parents were from Jamaica. First of all, she referred to herself as Jamaican when she's not. She was born here. But also, she referred to both of her parents as, you got the impression that both of her parents were Caribbean. When one is Caribbean, the other one is American. She was clearly on one that day, and you egged her on because of your disdain for your ethnicity and your nationality. And frankly, Karen Hunter was no better. And if you're listening, Karen Hunter, yes, I'm talking to you too. But I'm mostly talking to Dr. Clark. Doctor, I keep doing that. Dr. Carr here. Um, and then to add insult to injury, she gonna sit there and refer to Malcolm X's parents were Caribbean. And you sat there and nodded your head and said, yes. You know better than that, bruh. Yes, Malcolm X's mother was from Grenada, but his daddy was from Reynolds, Georgia. You know that any of us who have read the autobiography of Malcolm X and other literature know Malcolm's lineage being here in the United States as well as Caribbean. And you didn't correct her one time, not once, which was very instructive. Um, then Sunyata Amin talked about how Jamaicans are up for trouble. And then you started laughing and found that funny. There was no pushback from you or Karen Hunter regarding what she said about Malcolm's parents and all that. And I have to ask this question: does Jamaica have a monopoly on a fighting spirit? Somebody tell me, because that is what she was suggesting when she was talking. And of course, you signed off on it. You are a black man born and raised in America. You are from Nashville, Tennessee, with roots here, both sides of your family. And you're going to do that? Nah, bro. No, no, we can't have this. Um, Let me go on. She talked about how Marcus Garvey influenced Black Panthers. Okay, pause. Now, one would agree that the Panther Party read literature about Marcus Garvey, like, for example, Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey, as well as it was a biography written by a guy named Cronin, I believe, on Marcus Garvey. But to say that Marcus Garvey influenced the Black Panther Party, no. The one who influenced him was Robert Williams. Remember Negroes with Guns? He and the Deacons for Defense. But um, as far as what she's doing, okay, this woman is from New York, so you could say that Garvey influenced the Black Panthers more so in New York than say other places, and that's a conversation for another day. But let me move on. Um, she goes on to say, if you did something or something great happening, you're pulling out your flag. So you encourage that again because you see Caribbean culture as exotic and sexy as compared to African American culture or Black American culture. You know, yeah, we are Afro Americans. Remember, Malcolm X talked about that, and so did, by extension, a man by the name of Richard Moore, a Barbadian brother there in Harlem, talked about us being Afro American. And Dr. Clark talked about us being Afro American. Okay, Donald Warden talked about Afro American. Um, our sister there, Ida B. Wells, talked about Afro American back in the 1890s. You know this history, Greg Carr. So I'm not uh, um, sitting here trying to pull your coattail. I'm preaching to the converted, and yet you have purposely chosen to You talking about disrespect? You're exhibiting disrespect to your own lineage. You are pissing and crapping on your own lineage, and that's a problem. And I'm telling you right now, it needs to end. Um, when uh, Sunyata Amin talked about give us an opportunity to talk about Jamaica, it's going to end the conversation. And that's a problem because you can't even talk about something as it relates to Black America without some of them easing that into the conversation. They can't help themselves. And people like you have helped to further embolden folk of that background. You've done that. You and your reckless mouth. Um, and you made a comment, you've made this before, being against Sigma Pi Phi, aka the Boule, um, when it comes to formal occasions, you're not to wear African attire, and they encourage suit and tie. Okay, what's wrong with that, man? And not only that, here's the thing: you say wearing a tie is a string around your neck. Really, really? You got to be kidding me, man. Okay, so your man Roland Martin, he's Boule. And not only that, he's a fellow alpha, okay? And he's a Prince Hall Mason. What are you doing? So when you make those kind of remarks, you're taking a swipe at him. Now, whether he recognizes that, I don't know. But I know one thing: you're taking a swipe at him. But let me move on here. Um, Most recently, you were on Roland Martin, March 21st, March 21st, 2024. This is the part that really got my jaws tight. Earlier in the conversation, you were talking about, early in the program, I should say, there was a discussion about what's happening at Tennessee State. And you were spot on. I said, boy, this brother hitting some hits. Like I said, your brilliance is off the charts. But then you decided to dive into other areas that make me question some things about you. For example, when Roland Martin talked about the um, the American flag as it relates to the rodeo the that takes place. uh, every year. And when the two women, Cynthia Villery, if I'm pronouncing the last name right, and Margot Wade Ledrew were as guests, and Roland Martin was talking about the American flag and those who had a problem with it. You and your stubbornness, you just can't help yourself, huh? You just cannot help yourself. You know how there, or you don't seem to either you don't understand or you don't care. And there's a part of me that's more inclined to believe it's the latter than the former. And that is when it comes to black folks feeling about the American flag, how it's far more nuanced. There's a nuanced outlook, and that we don't cringe uh when the American flag, as opposed to the I should say, the way we cringe when it comes to the Confederate flag. We don't cringe when it comes to the American flag. When people like you, if you had your way, you would have all of us discarding the flag. Okay, you would do that. So when it was being discussed about Beyonce and the cover of her CD, and I would encourage everybody, if for no other reason, get that CD, get it out, get it now that it's out, uh, get it and support that sister and check out the other things that she's talking about on the CD. But here's the point: you said Beyonce, everyone in the rodeo, and everyone in the entire world can keep that red, white, and blue flag. Now, first of all, I don't know the folks who are in that black rodeo, but when I saw the film clip of folks with the horses, one had the American flag, another one had the red, black, and green flag. And by the way, the red, black, and green flag um, does represent Pan Africanism, but also it represents Afro American flag. It is. You should be old enough to remember, Greg Carr, that uh red, black, and green. As a matter of fact, what's the brother who made the song Red, Black, and Green? Think about it. Know what I mean? You forget that? So and that was in the 70s. You go back and check it out. Red, black, and green. I think it's Donald Byrd, I believe. Red, black, and green. Think about it. Know what I mean? Okay. So um I know I am. I had an uncle. He didn't have the flag, but it was a plastic thing that you pasted, and you had the colors red, black, and green. You used to see that um in the closet in the den of my grandmother's house back in the day. But when my uncle had that. But here's the point: the only person who gave real pushback to you on the show was Lauren Victoria Burke. My God, this is the first time I've seen somebody. See what has happened? You have grown accustomed to folks hanging on your every word. No, man. But for her to give pushback to you, it was like, you know what? I can't deal with this. So she was polite, diplomatic, but gave pushback nonetheless. You have grown accustomed to folks not giving pushback to you. Well, guess what? Dr. Soul Brother's giving pushback to you. As a matter of fact, I invite you, Dr. Carr, to come on my show. I'm working to get um, something going where I can live stream, not just as it relates to you, but have live stream. So if anyone out in the clouds know how they can help me get that going, let's say with StreamYard or any other way to get that going on my show, that would be greatly, greatly appreciated. But I found it rude and disrespectful the way you responded regarding the red, white, and blue and those two sisters who were on there as guests. That really bothers me. The way you responded like that. That wasn't cool, man. That wasn't cool at all. And Lauren Burke, when she said that she was thoroughly enjoying the image of Beyonce on the cover with the American flag on a horse, looking powerful. Hmm? That's what we were dealing with. Huh? So, to wrap things up, I'm going to say this. Dr. Carr, you need to get it together. You need to keep your hangups to yourself because you are helping to cause further damage, believe it or not. And I'm saying this to other folk out in the clouds who may be susceptible to his rhetoric. You need to watch yourself because that kind of rhetoric, when you start disabusing black folk of our ethnicity and nationality, you are a problem. And white folks, I've said this once before and I say again, when they hear you, this is not our country. This is not our flag. I'm not an American. They lay in the cut saying yes. And as far as citizenship goes, Dr. Carr, you have a law degree. So there is no way on God's green earth you could possibly fix your mouth to say, although I suspect that if you could, you would. But you couldn't fix your mouth to say we're not citizens. Okay? You are a learned man with a law degree. So there's no way you could say on God's green earth that we are not citizens. And so the thing is this, with all your anti Americanness, if you will, with all your anti American sentiments, it's interesting how you sit here in the United States of America in and you are a tenured professor at an HBCU. An HBCU you have disdain for, an HBCU that has provided you a lifestyle that you are enjoying, knowing full well that if you packed up tomorrow and went to Africa or the Caribbean someplace, that you couldn't live like this. And here's the thing, since you are so big on the Caribbean, Jamaica in particular, why haven't you packed up and moved there? But you won't. You won't do that. We saw when Karen Hunter on when you were when she was talking to you on in class with Carr, and she um was exhibiting some despair, if you will, and she was considering checking out in terms of leaving America and going elsewhere. And you quickly, well, no, whoa, wait, don't do that. Wait a minute. Well, listening to you and others, I can see how she would arrive at that conclusion. She was questioning things, even the positive things in America. So it's like guilt by association. No, man, you are not going to be allowed, or should not be allowed, to influence the rest of us and say that we are not Americans, this is not our country, this is not our flag. And when you do that, and you're interfacing with black folks who are African or Caribbean, you are helping them to believe that they are superior to us, including you. Okay? So if you say, I'm not an American, this is not my flag, this is not my country, what you're saying is, I don't have an identity. And not only are you saying you don't have an identity, what you're saying loud and clear to those who are African and Caribbean is that you have a culture that is superior and you are better than us. And then we wonder why this chauvinism, be it Caribbean chauvinism and other, has spiraled out of control. Again, you are one of those black folks in America who have caused this with your reckless mouth. So you need to get a grip, you need to lighten up, and you need to erect a mirror and ultimately engage in self or personal inventory because you have become a problem. That is why this topic is Dr. Greg Carr has become a problem. I would really love for you to get a grip and check yourself on that because you've become a problem, brother man. You have become a problem, and this needs to end. It needs to end. Stop doing it. You have spiraled out of control, whether you're on Roland Martin's show or Karen Hunter's show or any other platform. And this disdain that you have for HBCUs, my goodness gracious, this is a problem. Good night. You are the beneficiary not only of an HBCU where you were employed, but you were educated at an HBCU. You cannot, in one breath, be upset with what's happening with Tennessee State, then in the next breath exhibit contempt for HBCUs. You said that that's the one commonality between you and Barack Obama, and that is contempt. Remember, you said that in response to Lauren Victoria Burke. You said that. That's etched in stone. That's on Roland Martin's show. So, in closing, Dr. Carr, brother man, please get it together. For our sake, for God's sake, get it together. And if you feel that way, then you need to get a one-way ticket out of here. And if you're not going to do that, then sit back and back up and let the rest of us take over because clearly you've become a problem. So, on that note, I'm going to end this. And until the next time, God bless.